that down and to just say we're all on this boat together, and what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And many of the great religious icons that we turn to have that sentiment, and so he's echoing that. And that's what he was doing. He was taking his gift of, odd storytelling and using the medium of film at that time to be able to bring that message.
And to increase our capacity to love by breaking down the barriers that might reside between people. Mm-hmm. So do you think that that has anything to do with the gospel as well?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this is it's just interesting. You take a secular person like Rod Serling, you see what he did with the Twilight Zone, but he couldn't help but allow some of his, what I would consider to be some of the religious tradition that he came from, mm-hmm. comes out in what he does in a lot of ways.
Right. So his, so for example, there was that episode that I know other people have used to talk about this. That one about the monsters are due on Maple Street, and so the setup of that is. There's something that goes odd in town on this one street, and they can't figure out what it is. And slowly they start accusing each other of being part of this thing that's gone wrong, this conspiracy. And partly what he's doing is he's calling out the way our society was doing McCarthyisms, of policing our neighbors for being off in some way. Well, you do this weird thing, you must be, you have ham radios, in your basement, you must be part of the conspiracy or something like that. Rather than taking a step back and saying, first, we're neighbors and we know each other. And saying how easy that is to get lost, and we become a mob. We become, we put ourselves in categories and everybody else in the other category and othering folks. He was really lifting up how bad that can be. Now,
we talk about the mob mentality. It's kind of interesting to me that we within our political structures at times revert to mobism, mm-hmm. in a lot of ways. Not just in it's not a right or a left thing. It's just something about the human nature. I think about Bruce Springsteen, and when you go to a Bruce Springsteen concert, he said, it's kind of weird having that kind of power where if I said go, they would all go, and him realizing that there's something happening within there. In some ways, when I'm thinking about the church, I think the church has lost the ability at times to because we've gotten so used to having people wanting to instill a consciousness inside of them, to get them to a place where transcendence happens. Mm-hmm. Now, transcendence isn't a bad thing. It can be used as a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
But by bringing up the mob of Maple Street, he says, well, this is the bad quality to it, right?
Right.
But let's face it. There is something good that can happen too at the same time, in the same breath, right?
Right. And so the value of community is still there. What I think is a very key piece in Unitarian Universalism in particular, and I think Rod Serling lifts it up in that video, in that episode, is the sense that each individual has within them an inner knowing.
Right.
In the same way that people talk about beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You go to a museum, you look at a piece of art, you like it or you don't. It's not because somebody says it's good art or because somebody else tells you that you like it. You like the art or you don't, and that's in you. And so one of the things we say in Unitarian Universalism is that it's not just beauty. You know right and wrong. You know what's good, what's true. It's 2 + 2 is 4, not because your teacher told you. It's because you can go out in the world and experience that reality and know that it's true.
It's observable.
It's observable. Well, and when you get into non-observable things like racism is bad, or women are human beings too. Feminism is a value. And so you get into some of those things. You have an inner piece of you that resonates with that. And Rod Serling was trying to make it clear that, if the monsters come on Maple Street, you can stand up with your voice and say, well, I know all of the people in this neighborhood, and I know they're not monsters. I know we're better than that. And you can name what is within you to say, look, we're getting a little too far afield we're letting our fear move us rather than the trust that we've experienced with each other to move us.
And that would really bring back the quality that he was talking about, to increase your capacity to love. Because love and fear seem to be two of the opposite spectrums as far as how a group would react.
Yeah.
So a group that's centered on love and on the ability to transform and to change and to find hope and to find meaning and joy, all of those fruits of the Spirit that Paul talks about.
Yeah.
In Galatians and in Ephesians and other places, but those qualities are a part of it. But and then fear, though, when fear is a part of the story, when it's the thing that draws a mob together,
right?
Because at that point that's where the mob comes in, because love frees us. It frees us to be our truest self in that kind of a way. So that's kind of an interesting place for a congregation to be, isn't it?
Yeah. So we have this opportunity to, people. Who was it who said the preacher who's really doing their work will walk into the pulpit with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other?
That was Karl Barth.
All right. So it's that sense of too often we will lift up one or the other and not both at the same time. And so I think that while Rod Serling is, 30 years, 40 years out of date in terms of today's newspaper, the issues of what's going on now, he's sort of in a little bit of both. He's lifting up some of these values that are in the gospel, these values that are in people's religious texts, and asking us to pay attention to contemporary times.
Right.
Through the lens of love.
And I wonder if he were to do a Twilight Zone episode of the church, though. Because it's interesting, because so much of the culture comes into how we've operated as congregations too.
Yeah.
So I wish we could get into this even deeper, because I'm sure we would be able to fill up an entire other show on this.
Yeah.
But Rod Serling had a way of even could take the congregation or the church into a place where it could see itself in a different kind of way.
Right. Offer a critique in which we would be surprised to find a self-reflection that we hadn't been looking for.
Exactly.
Menace the church's conscience.
Exactly. Right? Well, Douglas Taylor, it's been great having you on Encounter today, and thank you for doing that. And again, if you're looking for a congregation to visit today, you could go to their church or to the congregation and be able to see the Rod Serling Festival that they're doing there. I want you all to have a great day and be kind and gentle to yourselves. This was